BYU has so much opportunity to do so much good. I know that there is goodness there. And it hurts to know that there is good going on, because then it makes it complicated.
People are staying away, and I wish I would have stayed away.
I have to close the blinds because I hate people watching me. I hate feeling watched. I feel watched a lot.
Young people in their 20s don't deserve to feel like I did.
People like us are silenced for simply existing.
I just would say, in short, that BYU broke me.
They try to prevent simple, harmless demonstrations of love.
What they want is for me to repress and push down every part of me that they don't want to see.
I would love for it to just be an evil corporation that I can just shit on endlessly, but I can't. I know that there is goodness there. I just wish that they could just look beyond their own biases. And it hurts to see that not happen. I want people to be good. I wish they would be good.
Provo, home of Brigham Young University. There's so much to love about this place. Let's take a look around.
Brigham Young University, or BYU, is the flagship university of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or what most people refer to as the Mormon Church.
BYU is sponsored by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and Christian teachings are central to campus life.
Academically, it actually is a fairly impressive institution, I would say, but a lot of people think that's offset just by how unusual the society and the social sphere of the campus actually is.
Do you support gay marriage?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that I encourage it.
No.
No.
I'd vote against it.
Yeah, same with me.
I mean, it's definitely a state-by-state issue.
Marriage is between one man and one woman for the purpose of rearing children.
They're famous for a few things, probably the biggest of which would be the honor code.
All faculty and students here commit to living the honor code and to living with integrity and character.
There are very strict dress and grooming standards. You can't have a beard. You can't drink alcohol or coffee or tea.
So grab a chocolate milk and toast to the university that's proud to be at the top of the list of stone cold sober schools. Cheers. It's good. It's good.
And maybe most controversial of all, you cannot be in an active homosexual relationship and be open about it while attending BYU.
As students, we're blessed to be a part of this great school and to share in the traditions of Brigham Young University. We'll never forget our time here as we carry the spirit of the Y throughout our lives.
This is good, though. That's my drag name, by the way, Chocolate MILF. No regrets. My experience at BYU, I loved it. I had such a good time. I made lifelong friends, dove into a career thanks to BYU and the opportunities presented, and I just had a really good time being involved. I do think people saw me in that position and inferred a lot about what I believe and what I think and how I feel. There was actually a time when I was talking about being queer or being black and how black people or queer people are treated certain ways, and people were so mad at me. They were like, how dare you turn your back on this institution that gave you your first leg up, that gave you a platform. I think the toughest part initially was culturally, coming into a very homogenous community, whether that's religious beliefs, the makeup of most people, how most people look, the race, even the style, it was very homogenous. So coming from Texas and growing up in a black family to BYU was kind of a little cultural shift. I was so in the closet, like I didn't even know what it meant to be queer or what that looked like for me, besides something that I shouldn't ever think about or talk about.
Utah and Mormon culture, and specifically
Utah Mormon BYU culture tend to have a pretty harmful and negative effect on queer individuals at large.
It's only been until really recently that you were even allowed to just exist as a queer person at BYU.
I know you expect me to say it gets better, but if I'm going to be authentic, I can't say that.
There was a ban on any expression of homosexual desire or feeling or dress or anything for decades, and that was only lifted in 2007.
I just felt I'm not worthy. God clearly doesn't love me because he does not love gay people.
I know what it's like to look at other girls and think I shouldn't be feeling this way. I know what it's like to be afraid.
I came out in 2007 and I was 17 years old and I was a freshman at BYU. And so I was a little bit younger and all I could see was this like really damaging effect that it had on all of these queer men.
I remember talking to my bishop when I came out publicly in 2018. And I was like, Bishop, I'm just letting you know I'm gonna date, yada, yada. And he's like, okay, well, if you cross any lines, we're gonna have to handle it. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, what does that mean? He goes, any homosexual behavior, we're gonna have to handle it. And I was like, so like a kiss, a hug, prolonged eye contact? Because these all feel like actually intimate things to me. And he's like, any homosexual behavior. I was like, dude, I'm 30 plus, like, bruh, come on now. Like, I'm not like a 10-year-old in your ward or something.
The watchfulness to like monitor like who's breaking the rules and who's not, you're immediately othered and stand out a lot.
Would you report someone to the Honor Code office for same-sex dating on campus?
Yes.
Okay, do you want to expand on that?
Sure. I mean, it's clearly outlined in the honor code, you know, and I took an oath to uphold that honor code and, you know, see or go after people that aren't seeing it, so.
There's this narrative of, well, if you don't like it, you should leave. And that's really hard to do. It's super hard to leave BYU. Their credits don't transfer very well, and they don't award associate degrees. So you can't just leave after you've finished your generals and have those count elsewhere.
Not all queer students know they're queer when they go to BYU. It's like a process and a journey, and many people discover they are queer while they're at BYU.
And I think that people don't consider that when you sign that honor code, I was 17 years old. And the amount of change that happens between 17 and 25 is immense. It is massive. Everyone goes through heavy belief shifts, and it's not something that you sign over and over again every year. You sign it once, and then you get your ecclesiastical endorsements every year.
I just very strongly feel that these students like need to be able to have the freedom to figure out who they are and what they want, and not sign away their lives at the age of 17 and be like, oh no, this is what I want, it's fine. Because people change so much during this time.
But then the flip side is, when you are trying to reconcile your sexual identity and your religion, BYU is the only university that you can go to where you can find other people going through the same shit that you are and leaning on them to help you figure it out. If you go to any other university, you will be the only queer Mormon there. Mormonism is different than other religions, even Christian religions, in the sense that it pervades every aspect of your life. That's compounded when you're a student at BYU because you go to church and your neighbors are Mormon and your family is Mormon. It's your community, your classmates, where you live, work, your education, and all these other aspects of your life are tied into it. So when you're a queer Mormon and you're questioning your relationship between queerness and religion, all of these things come into question when you start questioning that. Some students get completely abandoned by their family and their friends and the school, and they get kicked out of their house and they have to find a new job and they lose their insurance, and it's such a destabilizing thing. It happens among that spectrum all the time, every day.
And that all came to this head when BYU removed the clause that explicitly stated there is a ban on all expression of homosexual feelings and desires.
This is a special day on the campus of Brigham Young University. The latest version of BYU's Honor Code has a key omission. It no longer includes this paragraph indicating any homosexual behavior or physical intimacy is inappropriate.
February 19th, 2020, BYU deleted this paragraph.
Same-sex dating will be allowed on BYU's campus.
The university announced changes to its honor code that includes the removal of a homosexuality clause.
The change happened last week, but students began noticing the change today.
It was incredible. It was so fun.
Oh my God, it happened? That doesn't make any sense.
I was in my apartment on the floor, like just sobbing because I was so happy. And that's the first time I've ever cried about being happy to be gay.
Everyone started asking, like, what does this mean? Is this okay? Does this mean we can kiss now? Does this mean we can go on campus holding hands?
Some people I knew had called the honor code office to get clarification on it, and they were like, yeah, you are basically the same as a straight student. You can date, you can hold hands, you can kiss, just follow the law of chastity.
People go to clarify, well, what does this mean? Does this mean we can like do this, that, and the other? And the people in the honor code office go, it doesn't say it. And so then you have this explosion on campus of people being, I think, feeling relief.
Some students took to campus holding hands and kissing and posting their pictures online. We were like, oh, let's just do like a little peck in front of Brigham Young, broad daylight, in public, open. I'm positive this is like the first time anything like that's happened.
So I was dating a woman, someone of the same gender at the time, and I posted about it on Instagram, and I got a ton of support.
It was almost unbelievable. Too good to be true. Well, then it kind of was.
The new honor code didn't come without confusion. Late in the afternoon, the school tweeted there may be some miscommunication as to what the honor code changes mean, and added the honor code office will handle questions that arise on a case-by-case basis. I made several attempts to get some clarification from BYU and did not hear back.
There is no press release, there is no public statement.
Well, I reached out to ask directly what the changes mean for campus life, but was only referred back to the statement that helped create the confusion.
The honor code office is only concerned with either sexual relations or dating with intention to marry with proof.
International relations student Joseph Smith says he too has asked questions of the honor code office and came away with the same conclusion.
And so that's kind of the word that was spread around by people and the honor code office.
Everyone is just hanging with this missing paragraph that had been controversial for so many decades. It led to this 2-week period of everyone tentatively starting to come out of their shells and start to experiment.
The vibe that I got was suspicion and distrust. It was like, this is a trap.
We should maybe not trust everything that's happening here.
They're trying to like create a space where all of the queer students out themselves so that they can spring the trap and do something. I personally didn't necessarily agree with that, but I also was like very hesitant to be optimistic.
We just took it like day by day.
And then 2 weeks later, they released the clarification statement from CES.
This clarification letter basically said, yes, we have removed the language from the honor code, but no part of the rule has actually changed.
That safety was never actually real. Many of the Gen Z students on campus felt extremely betrayed. Many of them were caught in very precarious situations. Students had come out to professors and roommates and had come out as dating, come out as like having boyfriends or girlfriends, and then were suddenly stuck in this space where they had outed themselves, but like the situation was no longer safe for them. It was never safe for them.
So I went and talked to my coach. She said, with the recent clarification, I'm going to have to talk to administration about you. She said that she wouldn't have to talk to administration if I stepped down from the team on my own volition. It was really hard. I cried about it a lot. I didn't want to risk my academic progress because of that, so I decided to step down from the team. There was a lot of sadness. There was also a lot of anger toward the university as a whole. If BYU hadn't done this in the first place, hadn't removed the clause for whatever reason, I wouldn't be in this situation and I would get to maintain my standing both on the team and in academics. The fact that the clarification from CES wasn't released for 2 weeks afterward, it felt deliberate, because if you know anything about PR or even just the climate at BYU, you know that this is going to make a splash, you know?
I didn't even give myself permission to feel. I just went like super numb. That feeling of hurt, of pain, of loss. The pain that you feel is you like curl up in a ball and cry and you can't stop crying. That was a loss I felt that day. And the only other time I felt that was when I had a miscarriage.
I remember crying with her. It felt like somebody was intentionally taking away this hope. And it was really painful.
I think that was the time where people really started to get loud on campus before there's all this quiet stuff. Hey, ho, ho! Homophobia's got to go! Hey, hey, ho, ho!
It is day 3 of protests after BYU clarified their honor code.
They were demanding acceptance on the steps of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints office building. LGBT, God loves you, God loves me.
Oh my holy, it's a whole march, you guys.
Students begin to feel empowered enough to make drastic statements about the change they want to see on campus.
Things are just building and building and building, and then out of nowhere, COVID just shuts down campus and the world, obviously. And nothing can happen on this front for months.
BYU's Counseling and Psychological Services, better known as CAPS, is offering a series of stress management workshops for students.
Welcome to BYU Counseling and Psychological Services, sometimes called CAPS.
The people that hired me, they knew that I had this interest in working with the queer population, and they said, when you get in front of certain people to interview, figure out a way that you could like downshift that interest. Like maybe de-emphasize it somehow, not because the people at CAPS didn't want that, but because they did want people like me working there that could be queer allied, and they wanted to make sure that it would get under the radar of scrutiny of upper administration.
Everything you talk about during counseling sessions is confidential and will not be disclosed to your parents, family, friends, professors, or the Honor Code office.
I do feel like there's this unspoken underground railroad of people working, and maybe, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say it, but there's people working to get allied people to stay at BYU. They had started doing groups for queer kids. It was called like Understanding Sexuality or something super bland. Well, again, it very much felt like an Underground Railroad experience, because it's like, okay, but if you know, like that kind of through the grapevine, people would hear about these things and be like, okay, this group is legit. So that's the group that was set up in CAPS for queer kids. And I was told, like somebody in administration said, it's all right if you have a group for queer kids, just keep it to 1. And by the time I got there, there were like 4 or 5, like it just expanded every semester. And the people in administration didn't ask, and the people in CAPS didn't tell. So it's just really this parallel of, I don't know. At that time, I was on like a task force for the American Psychological Association, and I would go there and they'd be like, how can you work at a school that like has an honor code and is inherently like harmful to queer kids? And I'm like, but you don't understand what's happening there. Like if we weren't there, I don't even know what would happen to these kids. Everybody in CAPS was working so hard to just protect them, and whoever was in administration was like, I feel like they were doing the Lord's work, to be honest, to really help those guys. The people were struggling to just trust, I think, that you could say things out loud and they wouldn't get reported. And
that you could trust people in the group.
A lot of people at this time referred to this as a cruel bait and switch. There's no way to say whether BYU actually intended it that way. A lot of people think maybe that paragraph was removed because at the time, BYU was at risk of not qualifying for the Pac-10 because they were being too discriminatory towards queer and minority students on campus. Another theory is that they wanted to bring BYU standards in line with the church's standards, which actually does allow some expression of queer love. But the point is, regardless of what BYU's intentions were, that's what it felt like, and that's the effect that it had on the students that actually believed it. And I don't blame them for believing it either, because if this was a bait and switch, this wouldn't be the first time BYU had done this, and it would be far from the worst.
The students that graduated in my time, in the mid-2010s, we had to deal with a lot of societal pressure, we had to deal with a lot of cultural pressure. But the further back you get, the more that pressure turns into like practical physical endangerment.
Nor do we intend to admit to our campus any homosexuals. In a student body of 10,000 members, we can probably expect to have a few of these perverted individuals. The students who engage in any practices of this kind will not be tolerated on this campus.
And God will have a reckoning with such people.
We do not want others on this campus to be contaminated by your presence.
There is a falsehood that some are born with an attraction to their own kind and that they can do nothing about it. They are just that way. While touring a mission on one occasion, a missionary said he had something to confess. After patient encouragement, he finally blurted out, "I hit my companion." After a little more research into what had happened, my response was, "Well, thanks. Somebody had to do it. And it wouldn't and it wouldn't be well for a general authority to solve a problem in that way." Now, I'm not recommending that course to you, my young friends, but I'm not omitting it. You must protect yourselves.
Where alumni would have to deal with like police entrapment, where they would go to clubs in Salt Lake and police officers would be waiting there taking license plates to cross-reference with student license plates in their database to see if any students were going to gay clubs in Salt Lake.
They were literally entrapping people. This is not made up. I know some people say, oh, it wasn't like that. I was there. It was like that.
Gay guys in the theater department were just sort of disappearing. I mean, I can think of a couple that just stopped coming to school, and I knew that they were gay.
That was it. He was entrapped.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody hit on him and got him to go up above the Temple Park, and then when he initiated the kissing or whatever, that guy then said, you're under arrest or you're caught.
Alumni in the 80s getting electroshock therapy, getting reparative therapy.
They would expose these men to gay porn and force them to vomit, or they would electric shock them every time that they saw it in order to try to classically condition them away from their sexual orientation.
And with a plethysmograph on my penis that would measure physical arousal, they would start to show me gay pornography using the IV, and the heparin lock would inject an emetic drug into my system, and I would start vomiting while watching the gay pornography.
There's nothing physiological that's changed in most cases. Something happens in their head. They tease themselves with the idea. I had one very tall, attractive, blonde-haired fellow who was very manly, but he cross-dressed. I said, well, take a video camera and video yourself getting dressed and undressed inappropriately. And then we'll use that so that you're not having to worry about changing the slides and that sort of thing. He came back to me and he says, I'm cured. And I was very happy to hear that, but I said, well, why? He saw how silly and stupid he looked. And with that, That was more than the shock itself could do.
There are plenty of situations where BYU and associated affiliates and whatnot actively said, hey, these things aren't happening. We're not doing this to gay people. When they were happening.
And what have you done to address some of the things that you've done in the past, including the things that you said, and overseeing the enforcement of electric shock and vomiting conversion therapy for LGBT students at BYU?
Let me say about electric shock treatments at BYU. When I became president of BYU, that had been discontinued earlier and it never went on under my administration.
It was in a very tricky kind of way. Students had to opt into it. Therapists couldn't prescribe it. Students had to ask for it, but there was a lot of coercion going on and a lot of if you want to fix this problem, here's the solution that we have kind of thing. And students didn't feel like they had a choice. They were obviously, we've tried praying it away, we've tried therapy, none of these things work. I'm broken, I'm not worthy of God's love. I'm gonna do anything I can to be straight. But that is because of the environment that BYU puts these students in. That kept on happening up until the mid-90s, which was 20 years after it fell out of official therapy practices.
People my age and older like to say, well, things were different back then. That's why there were racists or people who were homophobic or whatnot. But it's no, we knew back then. There were people who knew back then. We all knew back then what was right and what was wrong. It's a cop-out to say that things were different. No, we've known all along, and it's just devastating to think that it's still this huge issue that causes so much pain.
Let's see, where to start. I was mad. Overall, it felt like BYU did not care about me and didn't love me and didn't want me there. They were just really tolerating me. I wanted to be at BYU. I wanted that spiritual component as part of my education, but I didn't want to feel like I was a second-class citizen, that I was a pervert, that I was delinquent. So I decided to create Color the Campus. I created Rainbow Day for people to wear rainbow. I started telling my friends and my cousins and hey, wear rainbow, I'm starting this event, telling people at work. And I think there were about 50 people who participated that day, which I was ecstatic about. I thought that was so cool and so many people. It even was very misty and rainy, and there was a rainbow that appeared at the end of the day, which really indicated to me okay, this is something. I planned our next one for February 26th, 2020. Really good timing. Thousands of people participated that time. I was just oh my gosh, there's so many queers. All these different flags and stickers and buttons, and I was wow, this is so cool. People are so excited about this. A week later, the letter came out, the pandemic hit, everything shut down. So okay, we'll regroup in 2 weeks. And that 2 weeks, lasted longer and longer and longer and longer. And it was suddenly the new semester. And so I was really trying to figure out what can we do to build up that momentum? How can we bring us back to where we were right before the pandemic hit and shut everything down?
The why? Some of the history of it comes back to back in the day where it was common to put a symbol of your city on the mountainside. BYU decided to put a big Y for Brigham Young, for the Y, on the mountains. And we didn't have the technology at the time or the means. We weren't using helicopters and stuff. And so BYU students had to line the mountainside in switchbacks, hauling up cement and whitewash paint to make this giant Y. Y'all, it's big. It is so big. And so this has always been a symbol of BYU. It's lit up during certain times and they have lights that outline the Y, so at night you can see it, and it's supposed to be the symbol of the pride we have in this institution and where we come from. And it just has a lot of significance.
I wanted to show, like, we're here. We want to be a part of this community, and we want to stand up for ourselves. So in correspondence with the Rainbow Day that I announced for March 4th, which is the anniversary of the letter, someone reached out to me through an anonymous account on Twitter. I didn't know his first name until, like, I met him in person. Like, I only know his first name. Even to this day, I don't know what his last name is. This guy came, was like, there had been talk about, you know, coloring the Y and, like, doing all this stuff. And he's like, I have means to do it. I've done the math and I've measured things. Can we meet and can we talk about it? Because I think we can actually pull this off. So we met up on campus. He had these floodlights that he had purchased. He had changed the filters so they were colored. They were all battery powered. He had gone up and measured the Y to see how far to space people. He had shown his lights against his basement wall to see how bright they were, to see how many he needed. He had done all the heavy lifting for me. And I was like, yeah, no, you're right. Like, this actually would be a lot easier than I thought it would be. Relatively, it was still really hard. And he also said, I also don't want to be attached to this. I want to hand it off to you. And he's like, I just need you to, like, run with it. I was like, okay, let's do it. He created this Google Doc that we would send out to people that I knew would keep it a secret because I didn't know how BYU was going to react. This was something that was going to be a huge, like, moment for the queer community. And then we had a sign-up sheet and I was like, hey, just put your initials so that even I don't know who helped. I'm expecting BYU to, like, pull me in and, like, shine a light in my face and, like, try to get me to, like, confess everyone who helped me, and I can be like, I don't know.
And so what Color the Campus did is set the groundwork to bring this underground railroad system to the surface.
That moment, queer kids were able to say, we're here and we're not going away.
In celebration of Rainbow Day on BYU's campus, the Y on Y Mountain was illuminated in rainbow colors tonight.
Some students at BYU lit up the Y last night with rainbow colors.
Y Mountain was lit up for about an hour.
Several BYU students hiked 1 mile in the dark Thursday night.
Y Mountain, behind the campus of Brigham Young University, was lit up tonight in rainbow colors.
And organizers say the event was in support of the school's LGBTQ+ community, saying tonight isn't about protests. It's about a message of love for those who may feel isolated. News specialist Garney Bahia brings us the story.
Protests are typically geared towards BYU, facing BYU, telling BYU, hey, we want change, we want some progression, things like that. Color the Campus is faced totally in a different direction. We're looking at the LGBTQ+ community, and we're reaching out to them.
They hope those who may feel isolated will know they're not alone.
1, 2, 3.
The biggest thing I hope people get out of this is that this isn't a divisive type of thing that's like, you know, it's you're either LDS or you're Christian or you're whatever, or you're gay or queer. It's I think we can all live harmoniously, and that's possible.
I was lucky enough to be on the mountain the first time. It was kind of like somebody running off a cliff with a handmade pair of wings. Like, am I gonna fly or not? You know, people were looking around like, do you think they can see? Is it bright enough? Do you think anyone can see it? Do you think anyone can see it? And then you started to hear people in different spots along the Y. It's on Twitter. Here, you can see it. People can see us. And you just knew this was a big deal. This was historic, that thousands and thousands of people were looking up and seeing this. I mean, this is one of those kind of moments for me where it was like, I got to stand here in the front row of this scene and witness this piece of history that people will talk about for a long time. This was one of the milestones of this movement. I don't know, I guess I just felt it all. I felt the weight of it all.
However, tonight, BYU says they did not authorize the lighting of the Y and say any form of public expression on university property requires prior approval.
Really, I feel like that's just a legal thing to let people know. This is not a school-sanctioned thing, but we have all kind of learned to read into codes and symbols and reading between the lines on stuff. So who knows what was meant by that? And, you know, all these people are raised LDS and they're very respectful. So it's not like anybody's like burning anything, like putting gay movies of a certain ilk on the side of a building. They're like, let's just go put some lights up. All these cute little kids walk up with their candles and whatever. They're like, we're gonna engage in a wholesome activity with rainbow flashlights. I mean, come on. But after the rainbow Y, I just think a lot of things have changed in terms of like drawing lines in the sand, making sure that professors feel a certain way about things. I felt a lot of fear from people, you know, saying what they felt directly.
It seems that some professors, at least the vocal ones in the media, are supporting ideas that many of us feel are contradictory to gospel principles, making it appear to be about like any other university our sons and daughters could have attended.
During this time, there is this white nationalist network of LDS members who begin to gain power on social media. And there's a lot of complicated Mormon history in this, but basically what they start to do is use Mormon historical symbols to literally threaten the lives of queer people at BYU. They start arranging counter-protests.
Gender is an essential characteristic of individual premortal, mortal, and eternal identity and purpose.
They start making very, very violent statements online, making very real threats.
DesNat community runs strong in the area and had a counter protest of sorts with umbrellas. And I remember someone in the DesNat community tweeted a picture of an AK-47 and said, "I have my umbrella ready for tomorrow."
It can't be overstated how powerful this group came to be in a very quick time. There were city council candidates, there were state senator candidates in Utah, Alaska's assistant attorney general, Matthias Seacott, using the name J. Reuben Clark, a Mormon historical figure, was every single day tweeting transphobic, anti-queer, violent things, and had just a following of thousands of people. And we can see from their leaked Discord chats that they had every intention of committing physical and sexual and psychological violence against the queer community as aggressively as it took to shut this group down. BYU did condemn the very worst of this behavior, but then further on we start to see this weird period of whiplash where BYU makes a step forward in advocating and protecting queer people, and then they take a massive step backward in action and silence from BYU, and it starts to give these students just horrible whiplash, and things begin to escalate all over again.
I recall countless times here at the Y where I have battled and fought in prayer with my Maker. It was in these quiet moments of pain and confusion that I felt another triumph. That of coming to terms not with who I thought I should be, but who the Lord has made me. As such, I stand before my family, friends, and graduating class today to say that I am proud to be the gay son of God.
If a student commandeers a graduation podium intended to represent everyone getting diplomas that day, in order to announce his personal sexual orientation, what might another speaker feel free to announce the next year? Until eventually anything goes.
getting mixed messages all the time. It's very confusing.
The family of 2 Moab women found dead near their campsite in the LaSalle Mountains are calling for answers tonight.
Kylan and her wife, Crystal Turner, got married 4 months ago.
Brigham Young University President Kevin Worthen announced the formation of a new Office of Belonging today. Its purpose is to address the needs of all marginalized individuals on campus.
I'd like to hear a little more musket fire from the Temple of Learning and defending marriage as the union of a man and a woman. Musket fire, yes, but friendly fire is a tragedy. So many who are confused about what so much recent flag waving and parade holding on this issue means.
Came here not knowing what to expect. We already have quite a sizable queer militia. Stay tuned.
Oh, no, faggots go to hell.
The Honor Code explicitly states to respect others.
Just last night, this was all covered in supportive messages. And now look at it.
Even in the short amount of time I'm playing this part, it is driving me crazy. I'm feeling like I'm going nuts.
You're still Mormon. You want to be a Mormon, but you want to also live your authentic life, like you said. That must be very confusing.
Yeah, something I've got to deal with every single day. I'm still dealing with it.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. We want to welcome you to this special broadcast of a kind of a historic and exciting evening. In a few minutes, we should see the Y light up in a couple amazing colors. Today, if a BYU student was to let the lights shine, they would be, according to BYU, cited for a misdemeanor and arrested. We were just informed that the police department has shown up. We're not exactly sure how BYU is going to enforce this. If BYU does indeed arrest or cite the people who are up on the BYU mountain right now, this will be an interesting case. When BYU purchased the mountain from the United States government, House Bill 253 of the 113th Congress, they agreed as part of the purchase agreement to continue to allow public access to the trailhead and specific access to the Y symbol. At the trailhead, there's another squad car that is pulled up at the trailhead. Those are community members who risked being cited with a misdemeanor citation, a $1,000 fine, and jail time to show the LGBTQ community that you're being seen.
As Jillian Orr walked across the stage during Friday's graduation ceremony, she opened her gown to flash rainbow pride colors her sister had sewn right into the lining of the robe. This is in protest of the school's policies on same-sex relationships. There she is.
It is the back-to-school pride event, and I'm telling you, things have gotten a little crazy.
You're inside of their view, and so what? This is free speech.
We found out that there were going to be a number of protesters that showed up at this event, and the protesters did arrive.
Yeah. You know what? Can we please continue our talk?
Yeah, let's go over here
I'm
and
okay
talk.
with talking about it.
Let's go over here and talk. They have an issue with drag shows being grooming opportunities for children. It seems like that's the reason why they've shown up today. We initiated Operation Angel Wings.
To just be a really, really peaceful stand between those two.
A team of angels with 6-7 foot wingspans are now going to line up in front of the protesters to block the protesters' view completely.
You deserve to be happy too.
Breaking news, police say at least 5 people are dead after a shooting at a Colorado Springs nightclub.
The shooting happened just before midnight at Club Q. That's an LGBTQ nightclub. Another 18 people were injured in that shooting, according to authorities.
Aldrich was involved in a shooting at an LGBTQ nightclub in Colorado Springs. Brink says he's a Mormon, and his first reaction was, Why was my son at a gay bar?
And the Mormons don't do gay. We don't do gay. There's no gays in the Mormon church. We don't do gay.
Our safe space is no longer our safe space.
Like, you can't keep it down anymore. You've been pushing it down all your life, and for some reason it gets to a certain point where you just can't. It's building so much. It caused me to despise myself so much. For several years, I had to change something because clearly trying the same thing over and over was causing me to go insane.
The white thing that I'm wearing around my neck in my graduation, it's called a stole of honor. When you wear that, you get to choose somebody to honor. And I chose to honor a student named Harry Fisher. It was his last semester, and he decided to come out on Facebook. And because of the rhetoric and sort of the response that he got from our community, he actually ended up committing suicide. You know, he sat right in front of me, and I saw him do that, and I thought, is that my future?
The answer's pretty clear. Either we can treat people as people and they flourish and grow, or we try to suppress and intimidate, coerce, and shrink, and they die.
But I started getting so depressed to a point where I was like, life's not even worth living anymore.
I just felt that I needed to just kill myself because the heartbreak of me dying would be less than the heartbreak my parents would experience if I came out to them.
Counselors are assisting Brigham Young University students who witnessed a student fall 4 stories inside of a campus building this morning.
I know of people every single year that I was at BYU who were queer, who took their own lives.
A student who fell from the 4th floor of a campus building has died. According to the university, this fall was a suicide.
We can tell you that 8 years ago, a 21-year-old male student committed suicide in that same building.
Everyone is to blame. BYU is to blame. People love to just write it off of, oh, well, you just focus on the bad. Look how much good they're doing. Look how many people have killed themselves. Look at how many people feel unsafe being at home and in their communities that are supposed to love and support them.
Maybe it's better for me to end the sinful person, to end the sin, than to let it grow and destroy me, because maybe if I die, I have a better chance of having salvation than if I were to live gay. What would God prefer?
We had several people who committed suicide during the therapy. We had 3 different people who hung themselves in the Harris Fine Arts Center from the balcony.
When I was in graduate school, I actually tried to commit suicide because I thought it just had to be better than where I was and what I was feeling.
I and many of my brethren have spent more time and shed more tears on this subject than we could ever adequately convey to you this morning or any morning. So it's with a little scar tissue of our own that we are trying to avoid, and hope all will try to avoid, language and symbols and situations that are more divisive than unifying at the time we want to show love for all of God's children.
They're simply saying, please don't treat me like this anymore. For some reason, that gets framed as like antagonistic or hostile or ungrateful. And they have the ability completely to make the lives of queer students better at BYU. And instead, they come and give speeches about how they mourn that gay kids exist.
We have to be careful that love and empathy do not get interpreted as condoning and advocacy.
Harry wasn't a lost cause, and Harry wasn't rogue. The very last internet search on his phone was on LDS Tools, searching this topic, trying to find a place where God loved him.
And it hurts because I know exactly what that feels like. And I think that more people than not knows what that feels like.
I had one of the most profound, strongest feelings that I've ever had, that I should come to BYU if ever there was a job opening. And I did not want to do that. I had never felt more alone and unwanted than when I was a student. And I just wished a car would jump the curb and hit me. because then I would never have to come out to my mom. I'd never have to disappoint my dad again. I wouldn't go to hell. I was a gay kid at BYU, and I wanted to kill myself. It's difficult to talk about because I don't know how to make sense of it. But if I'm gonna be totally honest, I believe it was God brought me here for his queer kids that are at BYU.
I think it would be a disservice to all of the people that have sacrificed and worked so much to say that this was the start of everything, because I would even be a disservice to myself to be like, because of like all the things that we did and like the people that I love so fiercely who fought so hard, we laid all these groundworks along. And so that when this loud thing finally happened, we were able to take it and use it to make something.
Like, I hope to death that they felt that and that it made a difference to them, because there was a strong feeling in that room. There was so much emotion, so much honesty, and so much vulnerability, which is stronger than any spirit out there. And if they did not feel that, like, it's not like anything you can do about it, but I'm gonna be so fucking pissed.
The biggest thing preventing BYU from being a safe place for queer students is that right now their priority is being a safe place for themselves. And while they have that priority, it's hard to take in other people's perspectives and experiences.
I think that they are unaware of their maliciousness. It is unaware, and it's naivety, and it's ignorance, and it's easy to be naive when you live in a bubble.
I have already given up on like the Mormon community ever changing. I have zero hopes of space being made for me and people like me in the church. I have given up because I have been constantly let down. The only reason I am still here and doing what I do is because I have been so hurt, and I know other people are being hurt exactly like me. And because this community has given me more of a home than any other I've ever been a part of. I fight for them because they are my family, and because you will not fight for them.
You just have to support each other, because others won't.
In the Black cultural context, we're very critical of things that we love because we want it to grow. We want it to be better than it could be. It is out of love, but it's often not perceived in that way. As a believer, I'm trying to keep it in. Always, I'm like, what does the Lord want me to do with this anger that I feel? And I try to put that into like effective ways and holy ways. It's really gonna do something for people. That's really gonna make a difference in bringing like Zion.
If you love an institution, it is your responsibility to make it better. If you love your family, are you gonna stay quiet as someone endures abuse?
This has gone on too long. It was happening when I was a kid. It's happening still, and these kids are still facing such risk just to be out shining a light on a piece of rock. I mean, I just didn't know what to do with that emotion.
Like the reason that we've been able to push the needle like so much further is because of the anger and fuel that these people have. And I think a lot of people can make the mistake like I did when I first saw it and think this is unproductive and unhealthy. Why can't you just push this work along happily? Things have only been accomplished because we have been angry and loud. We have instigated everything, and I think people need to pay attention.
Part of what we require to be healthy and happy and successful is to be seen as a whole and accepted and loved. That was the most healing thing I had ever felt in my entire life.
To be loved in return.
To be loved in return, and not loved for a fake person, but loved for this raw, real person. I've had more than a few very profound experiences where I felt that God loves me. God tell me that he loves me. Every aspect of my identity is part of his divinity.
The thing that I would have wanted to hear is that not only are you loved, not only does it get better, because those are things that we hear a lot, but also like, will you be brave enough to show me who you are? I want to know you. I want to know the queer you. I want to know the parts of you that you feel like you have to hide, or you feel like are rooted in shame, or are rooted in guilt, or are rooted in expectations. Let's talk about that. If you could wake up tomorrow and be who you want to be, who is that? What does that look like? I want to be friends with that person.
April Flower!
I didn't like just having to tolerate life until it ends. What if God wants me to stick around even if I'm gay or LGBT? Which is something I never thought was okay before.
Whether it's because you're queer or because you are so straight you can't even see rainbows, every aspect of that is beautiful, and there is no part of that that deserves shame. But it's really hard to be accepting of the people that continue to hurt you. You got to be in a really good emotional place to accept somebody that hurts you and tell somebody that hurts you that you love them.
Too often, the world has been unkind, in many instances, crushingly cruel to these, our brothers and sisters. But we all look forward to the day when we can beat our swords into plowshares and our spears into pruning hooks. And at least on this subject, learn or know more. What is that big Y on that mountain? Jeff, it stands for the university here in Provo, Brigham Young University. Well, it must be the greatest university in the world.
I just feel like there's more to come and there's more to go. I don't know, we're a long way from heaven. So there has to be more that we can do.
She was the sugar crystals on my 10th birthday cake. Pink cheeks and sparkling eyes. When she came in from the rain, and day after day I didn't know about Adeline.
ridiculous and it makes me so angry. All these people are suffering for no good reason.
She was a Friday afternoon. As May was becoming June. Thought I wanted to kiss someone. Now I know I wanted to kiss you. Day after day, threw my love notes away. Oh, out of line. I want you to wanna be mine.
There needs to be drastic change if BYU is ever going to be a safe place for its minority students.
I'm really excited for people to shed light on this conflict between BYU and queer students in the best way possible.
It was beautifully ironic when I looked at her that way. We were praying for fire. Said, God, please stop the rain. But I've always liked stars and I've always liked rainbows and the way they seem to know me.
You might feel like the only one at BYU who's gay or ace or in faith crisis, but honestly, it's more than you think. We're all just waiting for someone to be brave.
It tasted all sour between my teeth. It wasn't right, it wasn't late. But here we are, hand in hand. And I'm right where I'm supposed to be. And line up all night, she was still on my mind. Thank God it all began with that line.
How beautiful would it be if BYU could just accept and love and support?
I am really looking forward to the day when it can be a reality.
You're right where you're supposed to be. 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 You're right where you're supposed to be.